Good afternoon. Thanks for choosing the panel here on AI and public safety. My name is Jim Rice. I am VP of North America for a company called Vantic Software. And let me just take a moment and let our panelists introduce themselves so you get an idea of who's speaking today. So, Jill?
I have the mic, maybe.
Emily.
Since I have the mic.
Thanks, Emily.
Sorry. I'm Emily Marisol. I'm the Director of Emergency Management in the city of Nashua, New Hampshire.
I'm Jordan Kessner, and I run Operation River and Project ASAP, and we do emergency management and active shooter prevention utilizing AI and distributed networks.
I'm Deputy Glenn Remsen, the cop in the room with the Richland County Sheriff's Department, and I am the supervisor of the Critical Infrastructure Protection Unit.
Jill Masavich, Wisconsin Emergency Management. I work in mission support.
All right, fantastic. So, just a survey of the room. Anybody here representing public sector? Okay, and I guess industry. Okay, and then any nonprofits that aren't considered public sector? Okay, great. Anybody else I missed? Sorry. All right, well, anyway, welcome to the session. So what we want to talk about is a number of things, but obviously the theme of the conference is AI and public safety. So what I would like to do is kind of kick things off with, what is the current state in, current news and or other recent events for each of the panelists to just kind of give us some context on what their day in the life situations are, and then we'll kind of go from there. So I guess. Jordan, you got the mic. So
So I've been involved in a few odd things lately, mainly with like the hurricane response. So I'm from Bristol, if you can't tell from my voice. That's Bristol, Virginia, Tennessee. So I'm in the backyard of North Carolina, the tri-state region, and we've been running search and rescue missions in North Carolina with the special operations units and various individuals, NGOs and stuff that are involved. And our whole focus is being able to merge means and needs to get people on the same page at the same time, along with the equipment proper that would be required in order to do the response. And then we want that delivered directly where it's needed, so then that cuts out a lot of logistics and redundancy in mission, and then therefore we can use localized response, federal and state, and we can merge the two together.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think, at the conference it's been great to see all the different technologies that are out there. I think at the local level, sometimes it's, that AI hype cycle that we're seeing, like what it can do and what it will do in the future and what it's doing right now. I think really playing out at the local level is AI that's integrated into the technology that we already own and are using on a day-to-day basis. So I mentioned it in another panel I was in, but for our first responders, I work with our police, fire, EMS, dispatchers. There's technology that the companies were already using, whether it's our computer-aided dispatch, whether it's our body-worn cameras. They're integrating AI to automate some of the work that's being done either by the officers in report writing or by our 911 call takers transcribing speech to text and doing automated dispatch. So that's really where I'm seeing it kind of right now, like today, where we have AI in our community. Where I'd like to go is more AI that's able to pull across our legacy systems, which most of government is legacy. Mm-hmm. And our systems are, isolated, not on the cloud. They're in different pockets, and half of them are PDF or scan files. And so that's where I really hope to go with it. But right now, it's those kind of AI that are embedded into the things that we're already using on a day-to-day basis.
Awesome. Sheriff?
Yeah, we're discovering that AI is key to prevention, and that's where I live on the emergency management spectrum, is the left of the boom. My team has to be right 100% of the time. That's really what it boils down to, and we've been learning with recent events that have happened in this country that the prevention phase, we've always said that, hey, this is just a pillar of emergency management. No, it's actually the foundation, because if the prevention's not correct, if your preventative steps are not correct, everything else is going to fall apart. So some of the areas that we've been using AI, I know that somewhere in my recent session, we just had a operation a couple weeks ago where we had to use facial recognition. There was a potential threat in the area. Looked like he might have been police. We didn't know. So we had to run the stuff through facial recognition to determine what was going on. Just because, as I said earlier, just because somebody's doing something suspicious or they pop up not what they are presenting themselves as doesn't necessarily mean that they're doing something illegal. So there are a lot of checks and balances that are there with that. I know there's a lot of fear in communities about that, but there is the Fourth Amendment. We take that very, very seriously when we employ these things. They have to do something that's illegal for an action to be taken. The other thing too is when you're taking a look at the left side, the prevention side, we're always trying to determine what the threat is. And for any of you that have worked with any of the intelligence that comes in from all the different federal partners, you can get swamped within 10 minutes with the downloads that you get. And one person doing that, a couple people doing that through discussion is great. It's great, and that's really the gut is key. But when you have other tools that can go through and show you what the threads and the themes are, it really helps to validate what you're saying or what you're feeling. Cops have this sixth sense. It's like, well, my gut told me this. Well, that doesn't fly all the time. These are the facts. These are the facts that we have. And also, too, just a really, really simple example. We do site security assessments for facilities. Just really simple in Adobe Acrobat. They're AI assisted. We ran our 70 to 100 page assessment through there, the entire booklet that we put together, and it gave us a one-pager of top 5 things they can do that are low cost, no cost to make their facility more secure, and 5 things that do cost something. It's like, wow, all that work and we got this. And they were, the decision makers that have to spend the money, they like that. They don't want to read the whole 70 pages. Now, some of them do, but most of them don't. So that's been really helpful for us to be able to connect and be able to communicate more clear with an infrastructure stakeholder.
So one of the main projects I'm working on right now is transforming our State Emergency Operations Center to something that will be forward-thinking going into the next 5 to 10 years. And right now, our Emergency Operations Center looks like something you'd see on the movies from the 1980s. It's like a command and control center, which doesn't really work for continuity of government and continuity of operations. So we're looking with a vision to having it remote, in person, or hybrid, meaning wherever you're at, whatever your needs are, you can connect to the State Emergency Operations Center system. I'm trying not to use acronyms, Emily. And get to work, do situational awareness, do resources, and take care of the communities in Wisconsin. So we're doing a lot of research and looking into AI. We're looking into machine learning and trying to figure out ways that it can help us do our jobs better, because we don't, like you said, we don't have a lot of opportunities to get it wrong. When we get it wrong, it's very public and can be lethal. So we really want to pay attention to the systems we put in place and make sure that we can rely on those. So that's the main reason that I've been here, and I've been involved with Pacific Northwest National Laboratories and a lot of their research.
Very good. Well, thank you, Jill. Thank you, everyone. Since we talked about the current state, I thought I would also give an example that actually everyone just touched on. So one of the countries that has ongoing threat is the country of Japan. It's an island, and so they rely on their telecoms for providing wireless and wired infrastructure, and what they connect to that is a big sensor network. So if you can imagine tsunami sensors on buoys, flood and earthquake sensors on the ground. On the subway systems, you have the need to detect water and or dangers that could happen in the subways. And then I believe it's Honda, basically created the highway safety system for the government to use. So think of it as your Waze, traffic solution to know where you need to route around problem areas. So all that data from all those sensors is really helpful, but it can overwhelm, the emergency operations community very quickly. So you have a government need, right, at the national level. You have a territory level, similar to, let's say, the Carolinas or, Florida or wherever there might be, California with fires. So you have a regional area type of problem, and then you have citizens who want to opt in because, you know, if the government can tell the citizens to get out of harm's way, the earlier they know about it, that left of bang proactive measures that you can notify the right people at the right time, you know, the better, right? Because then you can have a controlled flow instead of a panic type situation. So Japan's national emergency management system is using Vantic, and so while we're talking about the state of the state, you know, this is something that today is actually being instituted and implemented and running for the country of Japan. So now let me pivot to an idea of, I guess, how the data, and I'm going to call it integration and interoperability. A lot of the challenges of doing emergency operations is about getting other people's data. As you mentioned, you could get into data with lots of data. We have legacy systems, or you have legacy systems, you know, because you don't get the luxury of just getting to write a check whenever you want and go replace systems just because, you know, you see a shiny object. So leveraging the as-is systems and yet still trying to figure out how to take advantage of the needs of a future state, right? Starting to fill the gaps. So if we can go back through and, you know, just talk about, you know, some of the things that you're seeing that AI is doing to, if it is, helping with the communication across boundaries, right? So I'll just call it organizational to organization boundaries, mission partners. How do you think AI could be a help there, or already is a help there?
Yeah, I think we touched upon this, you know, earlier today, but it really comes down to trust. And so we have all of these buckets of data, both within the different levels of government. All our private sector partners have buckets of data, and then the public is constantly like generating data that either the government's using or the private sector's selling. So we have all of these buckets of data, but ultimately in an emergency, it's the expectation from the public that we're all going to work together because we all have the same goal, especially the different levels of government. So you know, I can tell you right now where I'm at in my community is we're leveraging different native AI tools that we have within our environment. So whether it's within our Microsoft environment or our Google environment, we're feeding that all of the information that we have in there. So all the documents, which the government likes to keep a lot of documents. And then they're able to kind of talk to each other if I point them in the right direction. This allows it to get the institutional knowledge of what's been created and what information we have. Where I'd like to see us go and where I'm hoping we're going is, you know, that's just my community. My neighboring community can't get any of that information. The state can't get any of that information. The feds can't get any of that information. There is that trust factor, but I think with AI and specifically AI agents, if my AI agent has access to just my container of information and your AI agent has your container, and I say, hey, you two are allowed to, we agree you need to coordinate on resource allocation. That's a big part of emergency management, is matching the needs with the resources. And if we all work together, we actually have plenty. We're you know, a very resource-rich country. So we actually have enough, but it's when we hoard our resources and we don't share because we don't actually know the true need that we have this problem. But if we have these containers where we keep our information, then they're safe, and we can, you know, put those guardrails on what can and can't be shared or what has to be anonymized, or we can tell you how we know that. We just can't tell you exactly specifics. We'll just say, you know, go here, don't ask why. And our agents can talk to each other, and then we're able to have that collaboration and partnership, yet still maintain autonomy over our data and safeguard it. Obviously, the government, you know, when you talk about data breaches in the private sector, I get a letter like a week that my data has been compromised. It's different for the government. When the government, you know, loses your data or your data's hacked, it's completely different, and we already know trust in government's at an all-time low. So it's really critical that we maintain and try to maintain and build that trust, and I think actually AI is going to help us do that because we're going to be able to share our information with our partners and collaborate both across levels of government, again with the private sector, while still keeping those restrictions on the data and the data usage. So I'm really hopeful on that, but right now it's just really using it on our own internal data, which is still really good, because otherwise it was, again, just piles of data that wasn't even being translated into information.
Thanks.
Very well stated. We ran into this exact problem in North Carolina. We had people that had heavy equipment, people that had helicopters, people that had 2 million bags of IV fluid. So Baxter Pharmaceuticals got hit, and basically 60% of the whole United States IVs went on the downfall. So we ended up having companies and hospitals and people looking for IVs, but then we also needed IVs in the actual region that got hit. So how do you allocate those resources properly, and can you triage the event, not just from a medical standpoint, but from a physical devastation standpoint of where do you need to move even the heavy equipment in the right time in the right place to open up the right road that then opens up a whole section of the state maybe. Maybe that becomes a priority over another location. So having the real-time data on the ground allows you to make a better hierarchical decision. And then on a local level, you can have people that want to help, that have the means, that have the skills, that can onboard to the platform. So now you're kind of reaching from both directions, from government and from local level, and then therefore you can solve emergencies much faster. And in that whole scenario, we use agentic models so that we can really dial in a use case with one agent and dial in a different use case, and then, like Emily said, make those two agents work together. And then that could be a whole group of people that have their own data set, or it could be literally an individual task within that agency, and then you compound them together. Either way, you become force multiplication, and it's faster, easier use case.
For us, one of the areas that we're going to start moving into, and we've been talking about this for about 2 years, but now with AI and the advancements in AI, it's going to be even more possible, is data and metadata. So there's so many schools in Richland County, South Carolina, that we've looked at, that we've assessed, so many different facilities. And a lot of times we're running into situations where we have to pull up data on these places very quick for our response units and for our region captains. So the quicker that we can access that data and categorize that data without having to remember or go back to the stubby pencil in the notebook, oh, it's in file 1A over there in the corner of the room, that's going to be extremely helpful in us expediting our responses to deal with the potential issue that's at hand. I'll tell you what we need at the county and at the local level is we need more affordable AI solutions to be able to do this. I've sat with several AI companies, not anybody here, but in the past, and they're like, yeah, we've got this great suite. It's like, oh, wow, that's exactly what we need. But it's just not in the county budget to do it. So more affordable at the county level, because the responses, okay, it's not going to really start at the state level, and it's not going to start at the federal level. It all starts with that county sheriff's department or that local police department with a population of 150 people. Let's take a look back, okay? Sandy Hook school shooting, Newtown, Connecticut. Who in the world heard of Newtown, Connecticut before that ever happened? A few people did. I grew up right next to there, right? But when I saw that on the news, it's like, this can't be real. It's part of the passion, part of the thing that drives my passion. But it's those local communities that don't have a lot of money that need these resources the most. So, and it doesn't need to be like the Ferrari of AI systems or tools. It can be just very simple to do data, metadata, to make those responses quicker and to do that. The other thing, too, that it boils down to is trust. Just because one agency in a state has something does not mean that they're going to let another agency use that based upon the trust factors. So if every agency can have their own set of tools and then they can collaborate together with those tools, that would be awesome. And that's really what we need at the county level.
So it's a little different at the state level. So we work with our cities and counties and our volunteer organizations to, well, not volunteer, but nonprofit, NGO, right? To bring those resources together for our communities. And in Wisconsin, it's a home rule state, so we help them. We have to be invited to help them, so we can't just force our services on them. So we're all about adding value. The only way that we get in the door with our counties is by adding value. And so the more, I see AI as being valuable in getting quicker data, getting a bigger situation, like escapes me, situational awareness of the picture overall. So like, for instance, if a tornado comes through, we don't know what that path of the tornado is until all the damage is done and we're collecting that information. The faster that we can get those calls and that stuff synthesized into maps and stuff, the quicker that we can get resources to the area that they need it. So I see that. The other way that the state helps all of our partners is in our communities is by getting resources together. So being able to collect and keep databases of resources that are available, to be able to track when those resources go out and what we have left in real time. Those are ways that I see AI making a positive difference. The last thing that I was thinking about that I just thought of while we were here is, that I didn't think of before, is all these plans that we have at the state level of how to deal with an emergency. They're documents somewhere, they're PDFs somewhere. They take time, and we practice those things, and we go through them, but if we have to go back and enact that plan, we've got to go read that plan. If we can put that into a basic model, then we would be able to query our plans and say, hey, what do we do? What do we need for a sandbag? What do we need to really get together? How many people? How many do we need? Do we need bags, ties, or anything that we wanted to ask? We could query our plans. And that would be such a time saver to do that the same way you could query like ChatGPT or, Google something. So to be able to do that where the model is specific to our plans for Wisconsin would be huge. So.
Right on.
May I add
Yeah,
something
go ahead,
there?
Jordan.
So you brought up about how your department works with DHS and will test bed things. So very important, because if we create something and we have nowhere to test bed it, then we really don't know what the outcome is, right? So being able to work with you and then work with you on a state level and from a labs level, right, to drive the contracts and testing into making it cheaper, right? So then we can drive the whole circle to be able to really get an edge solution. The only way to drive it down and make it cheaper is to be able to give the innovator some sort of contract to further develop and make it cheaper. So I think that the best way to do that is work with you and work with a lab.
Well, the lab's out there.
Yeah.
I'm the state.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so, I was thinking about, because of my being a fan of Star Wars, C-3PO and R2-D2, right? Or, Microsoft calls it the co-pilot. But basically, you have this agent or something that is understand and fed the tactics, techniques, and procedures, the TTPs, of doctrine. When these things happen, let's make sure that we're all ready to execute the plan the way we said we would execute the plan. And that includes, what highways and roadways need to be cleared first, what train lines need to be cleared so that we can get big supplies in, tractor trailers, aerial drops. But you have to also have reconnaissance or situation awareness from a visual perspective. So now, if I don't have drones as a first responder in my budget, then the next best thing I can do is maybe go to public sources for SATCOM or satellite imagery, right? And maybe it's not up to the minute, but it can still give me a good picture, like long ago when New Orleans had all their massive flooding, right? It was like things that were roads were now, no more.
Something that's really interesting is there was a nuclear fuel site that got washed out in Tennessee that ran down the river into North Carolina, so there's a lot of nuclear waste right now. So that's something the news isn't really covering very much. But we're looking for dry wood in order to fill the gas or the wood stove so that they can cook and have heat. But you can't just burn any wood, so we got to get wood that's outside the flood zone, or else that wood could be contaminated with nuclear waste. So just
Yeah. Sure.
That's what we deal with every day, crazy emergencies like that. Like, who thought you were going to be talking about that?
Yeah.
That's not in the plan.
And so, it doesn't go well for a panel presentation like this unless we do a little bit of pre-conversation. So we had a little bit of that in advance, and I guess one of the things that I took away was there's also a need in the I guess the 6 minutes that remain. Wow, time flew. Is okay. Now let's assume we have AI and we have the ability to federate our AIs with one another, and the trust is there because we have an MOU, just like we'd have agreements with across county jurisdictions, right? If I drive across the county line, there's already an understanding about how your neighbor's going to help you out and bring me back across the line, or if I'm the bad guy. Let's, I guess, conclude with, looking at the future state, right? So one of the customers of our platform is a little town in Alabama called Opelika. War Eagles and the host of Auburn University. So not a big town, 30-some thousand folks, and yet, they have a lot of needs, right? And so the CIO, overwhelmed with a limited budget, but the ability to take a lot of silos of excellence and try to bring them all together in a way that he can bring value to the taxpayers of Opelika. So thinking about the future, where do you guys think you'd like to see your areas of expertise go in the jobs that you do and the missions that you deliver?
Well, I don't know if I'm going to be real popular for saying this, but I am concerned when we get too large of a database of information in one spot, because I see that as, one, a single point of failure.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I am concerned about the vulnerability of having too much data in one spot.
It's a target
So-
rich. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So I think we have to be careful, because we've seen that cybersecurity is a huge issue and that they can get into pretty much anything that they want to. So I don't mind the silos a bit. It doesn't make me very popular and stuff, but I think that we need to be thoughtful when we're gathering information into one spot. That do we want everything in one place where it can be just taken? I mean, they can already take so much so quickly. So I like to be careful with that. I think
That's good.
yeah.
I'd say for me, it's moving forward with caution in the future. These are great tools that we have, but we cannot eliminate the human element and the human factor in it, is that the tool needs to be submitted to the user and not the user
Yeah.
submitted to the tool. Okay? Because it's like, oh wow, this is great. I can just push a button, and get the information or the analysis that I want. And one of the things that I do, I have a phenomenal threat analyst, but I make her use the stubby pen and the notebook to write things out, and then use the tools as they continue to move on, and trust what's up here, and use the AI to verify what she's actually seeing in that. So definitely moving forward with caution, and also too, especially in the world of law enforcement, man, we got to forget what we saw on 24 and all those TV shows. We have to always keep the Fourth Amendment at the forefront of our minds. That unless somebody's actually doing something that is criminal, they have the right to privacy, and remembering that privacy is there. We will not take a look at something unless we have been pinged already by another federal or state partner or something else that rises to the level of probable cause or reasonable suspicion. We will not do it. We're not just out there looking for, what's the next threat going to be? And I think in this world where I think in this world where the threat is constantly changing, we need to prevent ourselves from just getting into everybody's business to see who's going to be the next threat.
Both of those are very good point. That's kind of like Minority Report.
Yeah,
point.
exactly.
So you gotta, we got to be very careful on the future. But at the same time, there's such a powerful movement that's happened. I've been kind of studying blockchain since about 2012. So this is not very new to me. So the distributed networks that just makes sense. You have to have the redundancy, but you also have to have the collaboration. And I think that the platform gives the ability for locals and people who want to help and agencies that are designed to help to actually be able to collaborate together.
Yeah, I think to kind of bring that all together, when we look at AI, it's in government, it's all about increasing our capacity to do good. Like that's all we want to do, is increase our capacity to do good for the people we serve. And how we do that is through improving our processes. And we heard about that in this morning's session. It's getting eventually to the point where, you have AI first processes, but so much of the work that we do is not that work that we want to be doing, where it's that human interactions, building trust, building relationships. And in fact, that's a real problem, because the public sees us as replaceable, because they don't even see us, because we're behind a desk doing all these processes that are inefficient or ineffective. whether they're internal to our agency or they're our customer service processes. And that's how we become replaceable. That's how we can be replaced, is if the private sector or others are able to do it more efficiently and effectively and actually provide high quality customer service. So really, there is an imperative in public safety to say, we need these tools to augment our quote unquote, basically busy work, honestly, augment our busy work, that drudgery, that repetitive tasks that don't take a human, so that we can put our humans out there, out front, actually serving the public, doing the public safety. That actually is why everyone got these jobs, right? This is why someone wants to be a doctor. It isn't to write up charts every day. That's not what you want to do. Or redact your body cam video. Like, that's not what you want to be spending the time doing. We want to be out there serving the public. And so we have to communicate that to our elected officials, to our leaders, that this is how we get back out there in the public, serving the community, by taking advantage of this technology and not adopting it piecemeal. We talked about this on the pre-call, is that a tool that we can use in our local, state, federal government is a tool we can use across all of our services. Ultimately, we're all doing the same thing. We're serving the public. Whether I'm filling a pothole or responding to a 911 call, it's the same. It's the same baseline information and data. So having an integrated tool is another way we bring down the cost, is by showing the value across all of our public services.
That's an excellent point that you make, because a lot of the things that we do when we're taking like a site security assessments at a school, at a hospital, a lot of that can be automated with AI, right? And I'll explain it this way, and I tell my team members this all the time. We feel like broken records going, lock your doors, okay? Lock your doors. Take the brick out from the door and remove it. That's going to help keep you safe. And we're like, oh man, we're saying the same thing over and over again. But to that one stakeholder that we're talking to, that's the first time they've ever heard that, even though we've said it 20 times earlier in the day. So putting that in the report automated, that way, because a lot of what we do, we look at the people that we work with, our infrastructure stakeholders, as customers. And it's customer service. And we spend a lot of time, they ask us questions. They'll call us up on the phone, hey, we're thinking about doing this. Is this safe? We want more of that and less of I'm buried in a report right now, so that we can get out and actually develop that relationship of trust.
That's it. Okay. Well, hey, I'll give the audience one question. And if there's anybody out there that wants to ask a question, it's now or never. Yes, ma'am.
So I will admit I came in a little bit late to the hospital. You guys may have touched on this, but a couple times before you mentioned wanting to bring costs down, and I was wondering if you've been able to do that by integrating open source tools, or if there's any barriers to that for you, and that's why you haven't been able to.
With the stuff that we write, open source tools have a lot of filters that we can't get rid of. When I put the word knife, threat, terrorist, and things, it'll stop it. So, and the other thing too is when we're using open source tools, especially in a law enforcement environment, our information is controlled and it's sensitive, and we're not exactly sure or feel safe yet with that, of where is this data going, and how is this data being processed? Is this being put into another base? So we're very cautious about that.
Yeah, I'll just mention that just like I'm sure any of you who ever first used an ATM for the first time, instead of walking in and asking the teller for cash and getting bills put in your hand, it was that network that dispatches the cash is not the same network that the tellers are connected to, nor is it the one that's used for international bank transfers. And the same is true with these systems that have very sensitive data. They don't belong on the internet. They need to be in safe places, right? And just for the reason of, if those of you who are training AI models may know, if you taint the water, nobody wants to drink it, right? Well, if you put any bad data into the process of producing AI models, then the model's not trustable. Everything we just talked about falls apart, right? So we have to have mechanisms where the whole process is repeatable, trustable, and then produces results. Otherwise, we get hallucinations, and that doesn't produce any value, in my opinion, to this particular group of folks. And there's plenty of tools and technologies out there to ensure that this is happening. But anyway, long-winded answer to your question.
So, I mean, of course, chatbots, which seems like what we're mostly referring to, are an option that can come in open source versions, right? you could manage an agentic workflow through open source through AI. It's not necessarily processing any, like, you ask a question, it gives an answer. It may be. Or it may be connecting you to, for example, IBM and NASA just put out a climate model, an open source climate model,
Mhm.
which is a foundational model. It's you download it onto your servers, so you're not sending your information out anywhere necessarily, unless you want to be for some reason. You're able to quarantine it, right? So potentially there may be tools that would be able to get your costs down in cases like this, which maybe would require a little bit of like more developer skills on a team that may not have those.
Yeah, that's what I would say. Yeah, I would say most of the budget-constrained communities in public sector don't have the teams to go learn an open source suite of tools, integrate and produce a end product from those suite of tools, unless it is turnkey in itself. Because at the end of the day, they have limited budget. They have to buy the tools that give them an out-of-the-box experience, in my opinion, and so there's the constraint, I think.
I can tell you we do. Oh, I was going to say, we do use some open source things. Usually they're government sourced. You know, like NOAA puts out a bunch of stuff. I'm trying to think of, like, we have Eagle Eye that, you know, you have to have limited access to. We do a lot of open source, but we're careful about our sources. The way that we are looking to save money in government is using some of the tools that we already use for other things and also dual purposing them. So some of the software, instead of buying specialized software for something, maybe buy things that bring tools that we already use and pay for other things together. So we are looking to save, you know, taxpayer dollars at any opportunity, but we need to maintain the integrity of the Emergency Operations Center. So it has to work together as a system. So we can't just kind of, everything that we do has a plan. So we couldn't just take like Wikipedia or, you know, that's probably a really bad example, but you couldn't just take something that you don't know the maintenance of it and say, okay, we're just going to use this and not understand how reliable that source is going to be. Now, certainly we could be like, oh, we're going to Google this just to get a quick answer. I think Emily used it before, like, what's the hours of this place that sells bottled water that we need or something like that. But we plan for things ahead of time, so we can't just kind of wing it. So we're like creating things that we can do every time and it's repeatable. So it's hard to use open source stuff that's not governmental or maybe like lab generated or something like that. So we have to be careful about that.
And I like the idea of the developer, and we have been cracking that nut for those that were in my previous presentation. Most of the people that work for me are civilian volunteers, okay? And they come from each of the 16 sectors of critical infrastructure, and I happen to have a cyber guy who has really helped us with the cybersecurity, so we're waiting for that person that's got the AI skills to add to the team so we can organically build within the team. Most of the stuff that we use, we trust it because we built it and we got those people to do it. And I know that when I say volunteer, you get this idea in your mind, but these are people that have been vetted thoroughly, and some of them put on the polygraph for the department that work with us, and we trust them. So if we can meet halfway with industry, you know, AI industry and our developers that we get, that would be great to help bring that cost down.
Something that I worked on was open architecture solutions, so not open source, but a buildable, moldable, adaptive network type situation where we could actually take use cases that are open source and get the cream of the crop, so to speak, and then use that with someone who knows how to recreate that code. And then hopefully if we can get people that are interested in developing applications to work with the labs so that those become from the government side and can be into a model where you all can share them. So a hybrid type approach would probably be best.
I think lastly, I would say that, yeah, for the most part, in the public safety space, you're not going to find any sort of development coding capability, and no one's going to want to do that because we just can't guarantee we can maintain it. I think the success that the sheriff mentioned, I've also had using Code for America, which is a great group of volunteers who want to volunteer their time to improve the government's technology. Thank you to all of you. And those are those kind of partnerships that we're looking for. But I think to Jim's point, you know, we're really looking for those off-the-shelf solutions just because we cannot stand up something we can't maintain. That's something like we're just, as a government, just not really willing to do because it's just we know that budgets are going to get tight and things are going to get cut, and then we're going to have a system that we can't keep up with, and why did we do it in the first place? So those customizable solutions are fine, but it's got to really be something that we can really just count on working from the start. It doesn't have to be a 100% solution, but we're really looking for something that meets a lot of needs, and I think that's how you bring the cost down. It's again something that's going to serve multiple different departments within your within your community, within your state or local. That's the sales pitch really that's going to bring like the user costs down.
Yeah,
So
perfect.
I think we're at time.
We are. Yeah, we went over. My bad for letting, but it was a great question. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So thank you all. Can you thank the panelists, please? Have a great evening, everyone. Thanks.